Hey guys, Mr. Imatsu here. Just giving you the extended version of lesson two. And in this extended version, I will be going through and reading every document and doing all of these items for you. So let's not waste any time and let's get into it. Hopefully you have already tried to do this on your own and you simply have the document out and you are reading and you are looking at my circles and my underlines and just kind of listening to the conversation as you compare and contrast your notes to mine. So that's what we're going to be focused on. So let's get through these documents. All right. So first thing we're going to do is we're always going to look at the top. I'm not going to put these little labels on anymore, but as we know on the top, we always do sourcing. So all I know is that the source is actually it's a picture, right? It's almost a whole thing, and this actually is a type of source. And so in this type of source, in my opinion, this kind of looks like a kind of like an artist. It's kind of artist painting. It's actually a wood block, but we'll put artist wood block for published material, right? And so it's a published material. If we're talking about like a newspaper or whatever this is, or pamphlet, they're used to persuade somebody, right? So I'm going to put here persuasion. And you're going to see actually that a lot of these documents, when you see, a lot of you guys are going to get real excited when you see some kind of visual document, because especially if it's done by an artist, it's done in a way to convince people to think a certain way. So next, after we've done that, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the document itself. And we're going to go ahead and try to figure out what this is all about. So first of all, the title itself, right? So if you're drunk, you're going to go into poverty, you're going to be poor, you're going to be wretched, right? Lose things, you're going to go into ruin, okay? So let's go ahead and look at all these and kind of figure out what's going on. So he gets up early in the morning so that he can drink. So it also looks like it's these are Isaiah, and Proverbs and Romans. These are all chapters of the Bible. So they're using references from the Bible on the top to describe things. Over here, let's take a look at this picture. It looks like this guy's drinking. The girls over here maybe kind of point up and dad. And really, what I really like to see is this. Is that a goat? I think I've seen this a bunch of times. I I don't know. Okay. Well, anyways, what is interesting here is a woman, and in my opinion, with her hand like that, it really feels that she's kind of disappointed what's going on. So the morning dram, this is when we begin to lose appetite. It says the beginning of sorrow. You don't worry about your work. You become idle or lazy. You languor and hang out. You lose your appetite. You become dull and heavy, and you become more and more wanting to have alcohol. So he talks about more over here. I'm going to be focusing more on the pictures. Here, we got people at the bar, the saloon, and it seems like they're having some problems here. They're fighting. There's some guy throwing up. This guy can't pour enough drinks. This guy's just hammering drinks down. So now you have bad company. You're cursing. You are profane. You swear. People are fighting. There's gambling. All these things. And it says the gate of hell. All right. Now it looks like we're going into some kind of almost domestic thing. Here he has a hand, and these children are a little concerned, and now mom is weeping, and the wife is weeping in the background, right? So the confirmed drunkard, constantly drunk. He can't even stand. Look at his pants. They're shredded now. They're a hole over here. Misery. People become brutality. They start not paying because maybe they're not going to work. And then here it says the drunkard shall come to poverty, right? And then it has these guys leaving their home that went for sale, right? So poverty and got kicked out because they probably couldn't pay for their loan. So over here, what's our summary going to say? I'm going to put here that I'm not going to say states. I'm going to say shows, right? Because it's a lot. It's basically a visual. You could say states because there's a lot of stuff in here. But I'm going to say shows a family, a husband actually, of or father. Shows the father of a family getting more and more sorry, shows father family going through the negative effects of alcoholism, right? Again, if you want to say by showing sorrow, bad company, start using these words. And you can also go a little further into the details of him like grabbing a bat or losing their home. You can, but this is a simple summary. It's showing them in the negative effects of alcoholism. It's all about alcoholism and stopping it, right? So we see immediately a tie now into our first document that we did in that previous lesson, where one of the where Lyman Beecher talked about temperance, right? And so just for you advanced students, not advanced students, but the students that want to do an advanced type of essay where you're trying to do all the documents, we're starting to get something called a cooperation. And a cooperation is this where two or more documents have something common. So you could actually add that, saying it was a really big focus because we have two documents now focusing on the word temperance. Okay, so that's something I just want to put you guys in the back head. Anson's question was, the reform movement, temperance, how influential was it? I'm going to put here as very influential, although it was not, didn't actually get passed, right? I mean, this one is a very influential document. So I'm going to come up there now, and I might even edit this later, right, to get these to come together. I might change my argument to say, it was very influential. If it wasn't for Lyman Beecher saying it here, this may have not happened, and this may have thrusted it to be in a little bit more in the influence of other people. All right. All right. So we got another one. All right. David Walker. Walker's appeal to colored citizens of the world. Now, I don't know anything about David, unfortunately, and I'm glad that we don't know much about David, because you're not going to be able to know every author of the documents, obviously. So we have to look at other things for sourcing. So I'm going to go ahead and look at this, and I'm going to say that this is published material. Now, published material, usually you are trying again to make an argument and also make some money, right? Right? I mean, you're making a profit, right? And so maybe you're saying things to become more of a influential author or sensational author where people are going to read your book. Okay, so that's kind of the argument that I'm making. The fact that he puts colored citizens of the world, I'm also going to actually put another item over here, which is something that I want you guys to think about, and we'll actually use this in mind. The fact that he's saying appeal to color, like I'm trying to talk to the colored citizens of the world, feels like his audience is African Americans. Right now, I don't know if they're enslaved African Americans or free African Americans. We don't know where this is going, but it's interesting that he is saying, that he's appealing to them. Okay, so back over here. Let's go ahead and read it now that we have some sourcing. Men of color who are also sent for your part to my appeal designed, I call upon you therefore to cast your eyes upon the wretchedness of your brethren. And do. Men of color who are also sense, we got to read this again. So men of color, African Americans who are also of sense, who know something. This is, I am talking to you. Okay, I call upon you to look at the wretchedness of your brethren and do your utmost to enlighten them. And go work and enlighten your brethren. Now, I'm assuming that he's saying this, the free African Americans, let's look at what's happening to our enslaved brethren, the wretchedness, and let's go enlighten them. Let the Lord see that you can rescue them and yourselves from degradation, okay, by probably preaching Christianity. If any of you wish to know how free you are, I let one of you start and go through the southern and western states of this country. And unless you travel as a slave to a white man, or have your free papers, which if you're not careful, they will get from you, they'll take your free papers. If they do not take you up and put you in jail, if you cannot give good evidence of your freedom, they will sell you into eternal slavery. Let's go and take a pause because we've been talking a lot. Let's go ahead and slow this thing down. So he is saying this, hey, my African Americans who are free, do you know what's happening to the enslaved African Americans? If you were to go in the South and Western states, unless you were a slave or you had your free papers and you were just walking around, you're probably going to go to jail. And if you can't provide your evidence, you're going to get sold back to slavery. I am not a living man or a man of color and material who he is or where he came from. Wow. Oh, wow. So he is talking to them, even though he is not himself a man of color. So David Walker is not African American. It's quite an interesting point, right? So we have this, looks like to be a white preacher, really concerned about this issue of slavery. Immaterial who he is or who he came from. The white Christians of America will serve him the same. They will sink him into wretchedness and degradation forever while he lives. All right. So this little thing at the end gets a little interesting, doesn't it? Let's go ahead and read this one more time after these ellipses. And one thing I want to tell you is these ellipses, 1, 2, 3 dots, these 1, 2, 3, 4 dots, you need to maybe take a pause there. You know, like I said earlier, these documents are quite long, and maybe that's a place where we take a pause to go ahead and double check ourselves. So I am not a living man or any man of color. I'm not a living man. I'm not a man of color. Immaterial who he is or where he come from. The white Christians of America will serve him the same. They will sink him into wretchedness and degradation forever while he lives. It's pretty much saying that, you know, white Americans will try to come in and try to free them, but in their own way may enslave them as well. A little bit harder to figure out what he's going on these ellipses, right? So once again, let's go and go to the basic meaning here. And what the basic meaning is going on here is he's appealing to African Americans to understand the problems of slavery, especially in the South and West. And that should be capitalized because the South is a region and West, not a direction like north, south, east, west, like on a compass, right? We're talking about the South, like Mississippi, and the West being California. Okay. Over here, I think we see what the reform movement is, and it's going to be abolition, right? The ending of slavery. And was it successful? I'm going to say, or influential? I'm going to say not very influential, obviously, in my opinion, because slavery continued, correct? In this abolition. How much did it shape it? Didn't shape it too much, unfortunately. Now you could argue and say, whoa, hold on. Harriet Beecher Stowe and all this it's very influential, and that could be another argument, you know. So you could also say, hey, it's very influential. You know, if it wasn't for individuals like this, you wouldn't get the Civil War 35 years later. He was a cause of it. So we can go back and forth on this. You know, I could also argue, well, if it was so influential, why not in 1830 did we have the Civil War? Why wasn't slavery ended in 1830 if it was so influential? So, you know, what's awesome on the right-hand side of your argument, you know, basic meaning, you have to understand the basic meaning. But when it comes to your argument, there could be 50 different arguments. And I could probably argue one way and go against the other way. And that's kind of the beauty of what we call history. And what we're trying to talk about is sourcing. You may see something differently than I see it. And that's okay. All right, moving on. Just make this so that we're focused. Charles Granson Finney, don't know who he is. What a revival religion is. Okay, it looks like an article, but you know what I'm going to point out right here? I'm going to point out that it is, once again, a type. And in this case, this is a magazine. In a magazine, it is used to entertain. You know, that's what magazines are used for. So many guys are like, what is a magazine? So, you know, it may be a pamphlet at that time. It could have been a little bit of a publication. So we can actually put publication. Oops, sorry about that. Let me go ahead and select that out. You know, we can actually change this and say perhaps publication. Use to entertain, maybe, and inform, right? Because if it's a newspaper, it's usually inform. Okay, cool. So that's all I see there. I don't see a date. I can't help with the title. I can't help with any of this. So let's go ahead and look into this. All right, so Christians will have their faith renewed when they enter revival. They no longer see them as trees walking, but they see things as strong light in which they renew the love of God in their hearts. Okay, this sounds very religious. Sounds like the Second Great Awakening. Sounds like the first document, Lyman Beecher, excuse me. This will lead them to labor, to work zealously to bring others to him. They will feel grieved that others do not love God, right? This idea of missionary spirit about trying to help people be stronger, have a strong relationship with God, when they love him so much, and they will set themselves feeling to persuade their neighbors to give them their hearts, so their love to men will be renewed. They also have a long desire for the salvation of the whole world. There'll be an agony for individuals who they want to have saved, their friends, relations, and enemies. A revival breaks the power of the world and sin over Christians. It brings them such a vantage ground that they get such a fresh impulse towards heaven. They have new foretaste of heaven and new desires after union to God. And the charm of the world and these worldly possessions is broken, and the power of sin is overcome. The worst of human society are softened and reclaimed and made to appear as lovely specimens of the beauty of holiness. So, in my opinion, this guy is just really talking about the idea of religious revival, right? The importance of religious revival. So he states that a strong Christian religious revival will help all Christians become better or become strong in their faith. Again, we're just looking for the basic meaning on this, guys. Over here, what do we see? We see the reform movement of religious reform. How influential? Very influential, right? It is literally the second great awakening. Okay. Go on, next one, document 5. Let's keep going. All right, so we have a minister on this. A minister is somebody that preaches. He's writing about a planned utopian community, which is a perfect world. And he's actually writing this in a letter to a very important person, an existentialist, Ralph Waldo Emerson. So, one thing we can talk about over here is the type. We can say that a letter is meant to be private. And we don't have to do all these. All we have to do is choose one of them, right? But I'm just kind of showing you all the different styles that we have. We could also do the audience, or the intended receiver was a philosopher, Ralph Waldo Emerson. So I'm assuming they're talking about philosophical stuff. And then, what is the content of the document? It's really about this. I have a perfect society, right? He's making an argument for the perfect society, which is what utopian is. Now, when I just said this out loud, he's making an argument. I think that kind of is basic meaning. So we're going to get away from that. Okay, we're actually going to delete this away and not have that. And I'm glad I'm going through this learning process with you, and that's what happens all the times I do documents as well. I don't have it perfectly and edit things, just like yesterday or earlier, in our lesson today for lesson 2, how I went ahead and changed those questions. It's okay. So our conversation in Concord, remember he's talking to Ralph Emerson as a letter, was such a general nature that I not feel you're in complete possession of the idea of association, which we see established. So he's just saying, hey, when we talked over in Concord, Massachusetts, I believe, hey, it's just general, but I didn't really give you the details of what I wanted to know. So there's really not much in this first sentence, right? Our objects, as you know, are to ensure a moral natural union between intellectual and manual labor. So the idea that, shirts or chairs is a kind of joint union between, or sorry, it does say union, but this kind of togetherness, a relationship between these two ideas of the idea of a chair and the actual physical tearing down the tree, carving it, and putting it into a chair that now exists to combine the thinker and the worker as far as possible in the same individual, to guarantee the highest mental freedom by providing all with labor adapted to their taste and talents and securing them to the fruits of their industry. So he's saying this, awesome, when we make these things, it's between a person that's able to do both. They're able to think about it and make even a better chair or a more unique chair, and they are disabled sided. They're able to have the freedom of that, and the necessity of and we are to do away the menial services by opening the benefits of education and profits of labor for all. And so when this person makes this, those profits should go back to that person entirely. It shouldn't just simply go to maybe a factory. This person should do everything, right? And since they're doing everything, they should be paid everything. And if some of you guys are like, this is starting to sound a little slightly communist, utopian society, there were utopian communists. I believe that this idea of people should be able to give and take from each other, and simply give and take as they need without any type of established law or rules to make them happen, like most communist states actually created. And that's for a society of liberal, intelligent, and smart, cultivated persons whose relation to each other would permit a more simple and wholesome life than can be led amidst the pressure of our competitive institutions, right? Then instead of trying to compete with there. To accomplish these objects or goals, we propose to take a small tract of land under skillful husbandry, and husbandry means to raise it well. So in other words, put to build it like a farm, uniting the garden and the farm, which is there, the adequate, which will be enough to feed the families, subsistence of the families, and to connect this to a school or college. So that there's, and we've seen education twice now, right? Education here and education here, in which most complete instruction shall be given from the first rudiments to the highest culture. Our farm would be a place for improving the race of men, skillful improving on it, I thought would preside over the operations of labor, and labor would contribute to the expansion of thought. So thinking would make even more ideas and different things happen. We should have industry, factories without the drudgery, and equality without its vulgarity, without its negativity. Wow. All right. So this guy describes to Emerson the plan for a utopian society based on worker ownership of their trade and education towards equality. All right. And so over here, I see actually, again, two movements like we did that one. One I see is this kind of like utopian society view. And how influential was it? Not very influential. I didn't see us turn into a lot of that. I think we kept on with the whole competition thing and capitalist system. Over here, the ownership of education. I want to put education over here. And I'm going to say very influential. We know that the Second Great Awakening allowed many, many individuals to preach, including women, including African Americans. So I'm going to say that this kind of expanded the idea of education. Okay, let's get to the next one. Number 6. Almost there. One more. Okay, we got Dorothea Dix. Don't know, but it's interesting. It's a woman, right? I believe it's a woman by Dorothea. Remarks on prisons and prison discipline in the United States. So it's a book. So we got kind of two things over here. We got a female. And, I know it's interesting that we have to make some of these assumptions about male or female roles. One thing that comes to me is the identification of sex in the United States today at 2020. It's interesting that for sourcing, you kind of have to challenge yourself on these things, about how a female would typically think in 1845. And I know that sounds at certain levels could be dangerous and sexist, but I do want to make you aware that those are some of the things that the historians have to do, And as I told a student many years ago, not all females, not all Japanese Americans, not all Americans think the same, right? So just as a heads up, I know that these kind of qualifications that historians make and these kind of simplicities don't really cover the nuances, but that's what our job is. We're supposed to be checking the source of the person. One other thing I want to do is I want to put here the type of document. I mean, again, that this is it looks like to be a book, and it's probably going to be sold for profit, right? This is just somebody just writing a letter, okay? And some of you guys are like, that's the second or third time you talked about that. What's going on here? Again, you'll see this when we write the essay, how we're going to use these ideas to put this into a sentence template for you. So, I would not have officers become preachers. I would not have them much interfere with religious teaching. So we can't have policemen become preachers and do religion, so-called of the prisoners. So can't teach prisoners. But I would have them all moral guides. Okay, they can't be religious, but they should be all moral. In order to do good, a man must be good. And he will not be good unless have instruction by counsel and also by example. So if the prison guards are treating people bad, of course the men are going to be treated bad. You treat them good, they'll turn good as well. Now, who have the power of exercising these direct hourly influences except for the officers who are in charge of prisons? Who is the person that can change the culture of the prisons by treating it good? Is the officers who are in charge of it and of the prisoners. It is a worldless season of fitly spoken, which may kindle desire in the degraded to retrieve himself. I don't know what she is saying here, so we're not going to go. The faint desire, I'm going to check real quick too, who Dorothea Dix is, and there's an assumption that Dorothea Dix, yeah, so it's a female. I just wanted to double check. There have been some names in the past too where I assumed it was a female or a male, and it actually was someone of a different sex. It is the word in season. Oh, sorry. So, anyways, going back over here, I don't know what she is saying here. This is one of those moments where it's okay to not know an entire sentence. We're gonna move on. The faint desire becomes quickened into living purpose. We still don't understand what she's saying. Let's go there. This passes into fixed resolve, and this creates a sentiment of self-respect. So it's something about moving towards people to respect one another. Now, when self-respect is implanted, conducts the desire possessing the respect and confidence of others. And through these paths grow up moral sentiments, gradually increasing and gaining strength. And there is more profound and soul-saving sentiment of the reverence of God, acknowledgement of his laws, and a truer perception of the causeth not to err or not to go bad. Okay? So over here, I'm going to put, for the summary, that that she states we must reform prison guards and officers to be kinder and assist prisoners in their growth, right? She's actually looking for prison reform at certain levels. And so that's the reform movement, right? It's prison reform. Now, was there any influence? I don't know my history, so I'm gonna make an argument that no, it was not very influential, as it did not really succeed in happening. Again, coming to that word success, right? How much did it shape it, and well, how much did it influence it? And I'm using the goal. Well, if it didn't really happen, I don't think it's shaped it much. It didn't really influence it too much. All right, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and some of you guys are like, bing, 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 bing. I know a lot about her, right? She's one of these strong people that have come in. So we know about her, and then we can do authorship. Elizabeth Cady Stanton is a women's rights activist, right? And we know the Declaration of Sentiments and Resolutions, this was done in Seneca Falls. So we can put over here that this was done in Seneca Falls. Now, what's interesting, guys, is some of you guys might be going in your head, and I'll explain this later. This is one of the advanced theses, this extra historical information. And some of you guys are going to think, well, it doesn't say women's rights activist. If I do sourcing for the fact that she's a women's rights activist about the type of person she is, and isn't that I also get outside historical information? For outside historical information, you can't what we call double dip. So all I'll be explaining in the advanced thesis. And again, for most students, I wouldn't expect you guys to get a 7 on this test. I'm expecting you guys to get a 4. I'm expecting you guys to do contextualization, write a thesis, do 4 documents, and do 3 sourcings, or hopefully 4 sourcings. So if you make a mistake, you still have 3. That's what we're looking for. Now, the other points is you get advanced thesis, you do 6 documents, and you bring outside historical information. And those are the 7. It's funny how I'm doing this on the TV. These are the 7 documents, the 7 points of the DBQ. Okay, so we're not looking to get 7. If you guys get 4, I'm going to be astounded. The average usually is about 2, guys. Just to give you a heads up, like a 2.5. So we're looking just for a 4. A 4 would be great. Okay, so here we go. We hold these truths to be self-evident, and some of you guys are like, "Wait, that sounds familiar." She's drawing upon the Constitution, it's drawing upon the Declaration of Independence. Obviously, Declaration of Sense Religion. To be self-evident that all men and women are created equal, and that they're endowed with their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you, Thomas Jefferson. And secure these rights, governments are instituted, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. When any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, the right of those to suffer from it and refuse allegiance to it and insist upon the institution of a new government. We're allowed to pressure our government to when the consent of the governed is not being listened to. When a long train of abuses and usurpations pursue an invariable same object, events is designed to reduce them of their absolute despotism, it is their duty to throw off such a government, such revolutionary fervor from Thomas Jefferson, and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of women under the current U.S. government, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to demand the equal station to which they are entitled. Give us our equality. The history of mankind is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations of men, on the part of men, towards women, having in direct object the establishment of tyranny over her. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world, to a truthful world. All right. Well, that was quite revolutionary, Miss Stanton. We appreciate you. That is quite good, right? So she I'm going to say this, utilizes statements of the Declaration. And if you want it on the test, like quote Declaration or underline it, then it's good. In this case, we could italicize it, but we'll do that when the essay happens. So independence, use statements of the Declaration of Independence to convince the candid world. So here I'll use a quote to help you guys understand. I don't know how I use it. The candid world that men have been tyrants. And she doesn't say that. Have not given women equal rights, right? We want to get straight to it, right? And so over here, it's not a suffrage thing, but it's just an equal rights thing, right? So women's rights was the reform movement. Was it influential? I'm going to say not very influential. It's not really until, again, the Civil War kind of takes a pause a lot of these Second Great Awakening moments as the abolitionist and the Second Great Awakening, the religious fervor of the Second Great Awakening is really going to be focused away from temperance and away from women's rights and away from these other focuses, but really towards slavery and the institution of slavery. Right, so I'm going to put here not very influential. Women really don't get the right to vote until 1919, right, or 1920, excuse me. So, anyways, so there it is. So we are done with this document. Now, again, I'm hoping that you're not just simply just stared at this, that you actually had your DBQ out, you were looking at these same things. And what we're going to do in our next one, again, sorry to give you too much vertigo there. What we're going to do into our next one is we're going to go ahead and start putting this into our essay. So hopefully this helped out as I kind of meander through each of these documents. Again, I know this took a little bit of a while. This is me having conversation, also me using a lot of electronic tools. You might hopefully will be able to go a little bit faster if you guys are using your pen and pencil. You don't have to nearly circle as much, but wanted to get into these guys and have a little conversation with you. So hopefully today you feel a little bit better of how to approach a DBQ, which is once again sourcing on the top. On the left-hand side, we summarize, and on the right-hand side, we answer the prompt, provide those claims, provide that reasoning as to what the reform movement in this case was and how influential it was in shaping that reform movement. And so we are ready to go. We've had a lot of work, guys, but guess what? We see a lot of copying and pasting and putting the sentence templates, and we're going to make a pretty nice, quick, and easy essay here pretty soon. All right, guys, we'll see you on the next one. Take care.